I spent a year on the island of Guam, and one of my favorite places to go there was Tumon Bay. And it is a paradise of turquoise water, tropical fish, exotic corals, surrounded by a barrier reef to keep all of the waves nice and tranquil within the bay. It's a beautiful, relaxing, terrific place to spend a day. Until the day when it wasn't. That was the day when my friend Russ got the bright idea of swimming out to that barrier reef and crossing over it to swim in the ocean. That is the Pacific Ocean, the very large Pacific Ocean. And I realized my mom had warned me about people like Russ. She had asked me to imagine if all my friends decided they wanted to jump off a bridge, would I jump too? This was a good line of thought. I pursued it. And I decided, no indeed, if my friends were going to jump off a bridge, they would have to do it alone. But the problem was she had given me no cautionary tales about crossing over barrier reefs. I'd grown up in Colorado. I barely knew what the ocean was, much less a barrier reef. So I was singularly unprepared for this life event. My friends were not going to jump off a bridge, they were going to cross over a barrier reef, and I didn't know what to do, so I decided to go with them. My first hint this wasn't such a bright idea was when I approached the reef itself, and those wonderful mellow waves were suddenly crashing and bashing and frolicking and frothing, and when we got up on the reef, all the foam was swirling around our feet, and all I could think of was, how can I get off this reef? And we jumped off the other side into the ocean. I put on my mask, and I looked down, and suddenly the clear water was no longer a good thing. Guam is a volcano that rises up out of the ocean floor in the Marianas Islands, who give the name to the Marianas Trench, which is a gash in the ocean floor that descends to the deepest depth of any place on planet Earth, over 35,000 feet deep. And at that moment, I felt like I had swum out the window of an airplane and was floating in sky, looking down at planet Earth, suspended only by my snorkel and mask. And I was mortified. And then I looked at the fish. They were no longer cute and colorful. They were enormous and ill-fed. One had a personalized license plate. It said Leviathan. At that point, I realized that I was in the wrong place, and the only thing in the world I wanted to do was to cross back over the reef. Now, why do I tell you this story? Well, for a very simple reason, because sometimes Jesus asks us to cross the reef, to leave the bay behind and go swim with him in the deep. And when that happens, things don't always go according to plan. Sometimes the promise that you knew he made seems unkept. The prayer that you prayed goes unanswered or is answered no, or maybe, or wait. And you look back at Jesus, and he doesn't look like he did before, because the God of the bay does not look like the God of the deep. The God of the bay looks like Jesus with one of those lambs over his shoulders and that nice beckoning smile saying, "Come and stand by me." The God of the deep looks like the Jesus of the apocalypse, with burnished bronze feet and a fire in his eyes, and out of his mouth issues a two-edged sword, and his voice sounds like the roaring of many waters, and he's coming to judge the quick and the dead by the power of his word. And oh my gosh, does he look different than that guy with the sheep draped over his shoulders. They're both true of him, but neither is true alone. Why does God take us into the depth? He doesn't do that to terrorize us, but rather to alter us. Because it's in the deep things of life that we meet the deep things of God and that we ourselves become deep. I think we're often confused about what's really deep. We think of theologically deep, we think of great experience, a miracle or a vision. But you know what? Oftentimes the deep things are just deep. They're a chronic pain that calls from the depth of your soul chronic obedience. It's an evil person who draws from the depth of your heart an unconditional love that does good to those who persecute you. And the deep isn't always a happy place, but it's an extremely meaningful place. So my parting encouragement to you is if Jesus beckons you across the reef, that you go and abandon yourself for a meaningful swim with the God of the deep.
We hope you enjoyed this message. Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Learn more at biola.edu.